I see you're back. So you're interested in the 2021 Nissan Maxima, I see. Well, you're in the right spot because this will be a full review on this vehicle. And this is a car that I personally have been wanting to check out for some time, because if you want a V6 sports sedan, really if you want a V6 sedan, this is one of the few choices left. Like this and the Camry V6 and maybe like the Avalon V6, that's about it. Or else you have to step up to the luxury vehicles, because V6 vehicles, naturally aspirated ones at least, they are dying out. So you don't have many choices left. They're all being replaced by turbo 4-cylinders. We had the Cadenza, but I think now the Kia Cadenza is being discontinued now, which is very unfortunate. So there's not many options. So you might be looking at this because you still love sedans, and actually Nissan is celebrating the 40th anniversary with this vehicle of, celebrating 4-door sporty sedans and all this stuff. So we're about to check this thing out. So before we do, a little shout out, I suppose, to Leith Nissan in Cary, North Carolina. So if you're interested in purchasing this vehicle, well, you can talk to Casey about that. His information will be down in the description box below. Now, on to the review. So this Maxima, okay, let's start out with the looks. This vehicle, this design has existed for a few years now, and I really do like it, man. This is a spicy looking ride, I'll give it that. This is definitely a striking appearance for sure. I actually currently have the 2021 Acura TLX as a press car, and I don't know which one I like more. Maybe you guys can comment below, let me know which vehicle that you like the most. Let's go ahead. You can decide for yourself if you like the way that this vehicle looks or not. It might be too much for some people, but I'm more interested in the way that this vehicle drives. I certainly like the agility in this thing, but I will say, okay, when talking about this drive, there's something very important to talk about here. Yes, this V6 is amazing, this 3.5 liter V6. But there is a weak link to it that not many people like, and that is the CVT, of course. Now, they like to call it X-tronic. That's what Nissan likes to call it. Yeah, you ain't fooling nobody. That's a big boy CVT for sure. But I've driven the Nissan CVTs multiple times, and this is reacting extremely well. This is a great transmission, actually. We'll test more of that in a little bit, but I will say, the CVT, they've made a lot of improvements to the CVT over the years in terms of reliability and how it performs as well. Here's the main thing here, okay? This is actually simulating real shifts, so it's actually trying to be a legitimate automatic transmission. So it doesn't, have like the stupid mannerisms of a CVT transmission. So I think a lot of people will like that, and that's kind of what's saving this experience for me. Now, this is the SR trim that I'm looking at. This thing's got a more sport-tuned suspension, and more importantly, it's got 19-inch wheels, okay? 18s are the standard wheel size, but these are 19s, and this is wrapped in 245 wide tires in all four corners. Fortunately, I was kind of, driving it around, and it's actually very comfortable still, so that's good. We'll take it over some more rougher bumps here in a little bit. But another thing, one of the things I noticed when I first got into this vehicle, and it really surprised me, is just how big the freaking paddle shifters are. I mean, these things are absolutely massive. This is one of the largest paddle shifters I have ever seen in a vehicle. It's just unbelievable. And I'll put in the sport mode here in a little bit, actually. Here, put in the sport mode right now. We'll actually test out those paddles. But while we're stopped, some of my first impressions is, man, this thing, okay, like the reaction of this thing just in the normal mode is great. I like the way the CVT is responding to my inputs. I'm so glad that they did not neuter this 3.5 liter V6 experience. Okay, this thing produces about 300 horsepower, 261 pounds-feet of torque. I was kind of surprised by that, actually, because I expected this thing to make a little bit more horsepower. It did in the Infiniti products, but I guess this is a front-wheel drive vehicle at the end of the day. No all-wheel drive on this particular vehicle. It's not even an option. But even with the front-wheel drive, it's actually doing a pretty good job putting down the power. But 300 horsepower is more than enough for a front-wheel drive vehicle. I have it in the sport mode now. Let's see kind of how it rips here. It's got Bridgestone all seasons on here. Simulating shifts, simulating like a third gear right now. Definitely a little bit of lean, but that's to be expected. paddles, totally useless, which is unfortunate because this thing has some meaty paddle shifters on it, but it's kind of got like a mind of its own. It's not very quick to respond, so it's not like the snappy kind of, you know, rev matchy type of downshifts or anything like that. So, but that's okay though. But when you do have it in the sport mode, it does become even more responsive, even just in automatic driving. So that's pretty good, but let's see here. High-speed stability is truly excellent with this vehicle. I've had some good speeds here, and it has actually reacted to my inputs extremely well. Yeah, this car deserves a lot more credit than what it gets. It's just got like this immediacy to it that I just was not expecting. Like I mentioned, you know, at the higher speeds, it is extremely stable as well. So it's now some more of that cornering ability here. Definitely, like I mentioned before, definitely has some roll to it. But it's a predictable amount. It's very good, and I don't mind it. Brakes are really good, pretty grabby as well. Definitely stops you in place. Everything about it is like immediate, stops you right in place, goes when you need it to. The CVT is actually responding extremely well. Just don't use the paddles, which is unfortunate. I wanted to use the paddles because they're so damn big. But steering, I was kind of surprised. I expected the steering to be a little bit heavier, but it's actually not. It's actually a little bit lighter, kind of a medium steering weight to it. But obviously it is an electronic steering rack, but it is programmed really well, has a good weight to it. I do like it. Very effortless to whip this car around. I like the steering wheel. It is it's got an interesting combination of leather and this Alcantara type material. Sport mode is definitely reacting pretty quickly, but I'm very happy with the sport mode because for once though, this is not a stupid sport mode actually. Like, it doesn't just hover around 2,000 or 2,500 RPMs when you're just straight cruising around in 35 or 45 miles per hour. It just reacts when you need it to. But otherwise, the cruising is like literally 1,500 RPMs, which is great. You're not wasting a lot of fuel here. As another thing with CVTs, okay, this thing gets 20 city, 30 on the highway. Those are some good MPG numbers. Now, I will say you do have to put premium in here. At least that's what Nissan recommends, so there's that. Now, over some of these rougher bumps, you notice that it is a little bit firmer compared to like normal, you know, typically normal mid-sized vehicles. It's not like your average family sedan, but it's still very composed, very compliant. It's just you feel a little bit more jitteriness in the other ride quality, but it's a very communicative vehicle. This is not a ride quality that I find offensive at all. Just for comparison's sakes, I had the Camry TRD as a press car for about a week, and that was absolutely unacceptable to me. I did not like driving that vehicle at all, primarily because that thing had ridiculous summer tires on it, which was so damn noisy. This obviously has all seasons, and it's really great. You notice it kind of peels out a little bit, but it's nothing ridiculous. I drove the, what do you call it? The Ultima Turbo, okay? And that vehicle, it actually put its power down extremely well too. I'll leave a link down to the Ultima review down in the description box actually, along with the dealer information. But yeah, Nissan has done a good job programming these vehicles to reduce the amount of torque steer, just the unrefinements that you might typically have with a front-wheel drive vehicle with a lot of power. You feel the steering wheel tugging a little bit on like really aggressive driving, but for the most part though, it's not nothing bad. It's not like ridiculous torque steer or anything like that. It's something that you can easily correct for and definitely does not detract from the driving experience. Now this car definitely deserves more credit, man. This is an impressive little car, something to definitely shortlist. If you're, most importantly though, if you're afraid of the CVT transmission, it's definitely something that you shouldn't be afraid of. It does auto upshift, that's kind of annoying, but whatever though. Like I mentioned, don't use the paddles. It reacts perfectly in the automatic mode. And yeah, for one, sport mode is actually a mode that I don't mind using. It definitely gives this vehicle an immediacy that it honestly doesn't really need. I mean, even in the normal mode, it reacts extremely well. But for me, this vehicle is just a kind of an awesome daily driver, especially if you can snag this thing at some good discounts. Okay, this is a pretty refined vehicle as well. You know, I had the highway speeds there. Pretty good speeds too, I will add. And you know, this thing's got double pane glass, only in the front, not in the rear. I've noticed a few vehicles in this class do that. If they do offer double pane glass, it's not in the rear, just in the front. But the wind noise is not really existent here. It's a very quiet car, not too much tire noise either. So as a cruiser, it's good. Slightly jittery ride, but again, nothing that's offensive here. It just lets you know it's a sports sedan. Now, if you want it to be a little bit softer, you can get a more basic model with the 18-inch wheels, and that should help. And this is the SR trim, of course. So it's got the Sport Tune suspension as well, so something to keep in mind. So even with all that, I still find this to be acceptable. But the steering wheel, I really like this a lot. This gripping onto this Alcantara type material, very interesting. Yeah, this you're looking at this because you need this V6 mainly. This is a gem of a motor, of course. Sounds really good, not like those 4 cylinders. That's why you buy this thing, baby. And honestly, this CVT, okay, I'm just going to say this, and I'm being 100,000% honest here. Dude, this CVT is reacting better than most automatics. I am so impressed with this CVT. This reacts better than most cars. Like most mid-sized cars, things like this that have automatics, this is doing a better job than that. All right, so the driving segment out of the way, let's go ahead and let's transition over into this interior space. So I know I spoke pretty highly about the driving experience. It really did impress me, but the interior does as well. This is actually in line with like the Mazda interiors. It's one of the nicer kind of normal regular car interiors I have experienced. And obviously this is the Maxima. This is like, it's supposed to be like a full-size sedan, just happens to be like a mid-size sedan size, like 193 inches long, weighs about 3,600 pounds, somewhere around there. So it's pretty good dimensions, I suppose. But the sticker price on this vehicle is about $44,000. Some incentives are in order, I assume. So definitely take advantage of that. And with incentives, dude, this interior space just makes a lot of sense. Only thing I don't like is the use of this black plastic that they have, like the shiny black plastic. This is kind of overused. I wish they would use a more matte textured material, like a fake aluminum trimming. That would have been nice. Something that's not going to attract as much dust, debris, and fingerprints. That would have been ideal. But I can't deny the solidity and the designs that they've used in this interior is great. Now, I have experienced other Nissan products like the Altima, as I mentioned, as well as the Rogue, and these vehicles also utilize a very nice interior cabin as well. Like the design is good aesthetically, but this one also blends in the nicer materials as well. More padded materials, more leathers, suede-like materials as well. It just gives it a nice, if you will, premium experience. Similar again to something like a Mazda interior. So that's great. Now, you have one-touch up and down windows for just the driver and passenger sides here. Like I mentioned, they are double paned. You have regular kind of window switches for the rear. You have a heated steering wheel as well. And this is the SR trim, mind you. And it definitely works. It works immediately, and it really does heat up the steering wheel. So that's great in the winter time. You have the Nissan safety shield thing that comes as standard with all the Nissan products, basically. So if you don't know how to drive, I believe Nissan is one of the few companies that offers the most amount of safety features. So take advantage of that if you suck at driving. Now, the SR trim is probably one of the trim levels to go for because you have a lot of nice little options here that you get as standard. So you got the Bose audio system, the 11 speakers. Sounds great in my opinion. It's loud, it's got decent bass. I think this is going to do it for most people. So good sound system to my ears. You have the memory seating option, two-way memory seats, so you got that as well. Obviously, the harder touch plastics are down below. You have to expect that. That's not something that's going to offend me, but just something to note there. You have a decent amount of space in the door pockets as well. Speaking of seats, you got these zero gravity seats. Now, that comes as standard with many Nissan products, and they do work. They do definitely do their job. It is a very comfortable seat for sure. I do like it. This one's special because it's leather, but it's kind of got like this suede material in the middle here. So, and it's got like this diamond stitching pattern in the middle here as well. If you jump up to a platinum trim level, you'll get, I think, a full leather diamond stitch seat, and I think you'll get electronically operated telescoping steering wheel. This is a mechanical, like you just have like a lever here, and then you move it that way. You have automatic headlights here, which is nice. Physical parking brake. You have two sunroofs, surprisingly. Actually, it's like a dual sunroof, one for the front, one for the rear, so that you got that. 8-inch touchscreen that comes as standard with all these kind of Nissan products, especially for the Maximas. You do have Apple CarPlay, Android Auto as standard, so you got that. And it actually reacts really well. It's very quick to respond to all my inputs and very simple to navigate. It's actually one of the better infotainment screens that I have used, so I definitely do not mind this at all. It's not the most fanciest looking, but it definitely is usable, and I like how it's not stuck up on the dash here. You know, some people really don't like that. Me personally, I don't care where they put it, but this is a pretty nice flush design. You even have a CD player in here as well, so if you really want to take advantage of the Bose audio, you can. Heated and cooled seats here with this particular model, so that's a great thing, and they also work extremely well too. You have your own climate control display here. Again, they did a great job with that, separating that from the infotainment. Fantastic job there. Like I mentioned, the steering wheel is sensational. You have like these the massive paddle shifters that is column mounted here, so it does not move about, and it does look amazing. It's very nice. I mean, sports cars don't even have paddle shifters this nice, but unfortunately not super usable here, but whatever. Like I mentioned, great use of materials. This suede Alcantara thing might wear down in the future, but as of right now, it feels amazing in my hands. Got some steering wheel buttons here, a lot of little options in the gauge cluster as well, so you can kind of play through that if you will. I got some storage bits here. You have a deceptively large amount of space inside this little pocket here, this little cubby, and that can actually fit a large phone like my Note 10 Plus Samsung. You got USB-C, USB, and an aux cable as well, so that's good. Close that up. You got two cup holders, like kind of medium-sized cup holders. You can actually also control the infotainment with this little rotary knob here, so if you don't want to get the touchscreen dirty, you don't have to use it, but you know, you have two options here. That's nice. Traction control off, sport mode. It's nice. You have an okay amount of space in the center armrest area, so there's that. Again, the solidity of this interior is very good. I like their use of orange stitching and the orange perforation inside the steering wheel, so that's a great touch. You have like this kind of diamond-like plastic material going around here, which is a nice little effect. Now let's go ahead and let's talk about the rear, because this is supposed to be a larger sedan. There's a decent amount of space back there. I like the way they have these kind of seats set up, because there's a good amount of toe room underneath these front seats, so that's good. You kind of, you know, fit your toes underneath these front seats, and you get some more space that way. So the seats continue to be extremely comfortable back there as well. The same patterns and stitchings continue there as well. You got the diamond stitched suede material in the middle, very comfy seats. You have ventilation in the back as well, no heated seats or anything like that. And the most important thing, you can fold down those seats 60-40, which makes this car very practical. And speaking of that, the trunk space is also a very good size. You also have a spare tire underneath as well, which is great. So very practical car with the seats folded down, the large trunk, that's great. And decent amount of space for individuals inside the vehicle as well. I will say, however, if you're going to be climbing inside the rear seats there, if you're a taller individual, you could bump your head against the sill there. But concluding thoughts, man, on the new Altima. So this is a car I really like, and I would choose this over probably like a V6 Camry as well, because I just like the way this CVT reacts. I kid you not, this CVT is superior to most automatics I have tried out. This CVT doesn't react this well in things like the Rogue and the Altima. Somehow the way they have it tuned here for this Maxima is amazing. So something to test drive, something to really take advantage of, especially if you want a V6, man. So it sounds glorious, good power output, very effortless. I had it up to some good speeds out on the highway. Refinement is good. Man, it is just a great driving experience for sure. I noticed a little bit of steering wheel tugging when driving a little bit harder, but it's nothing that detracts away from the confidence or the driving experience. Just a little something that you have to correct for, but otherwise it's great. And like I mentioned, slightly more jittery ride because this is the SR trim. It's not a straight up sports sedan or anything like that, but the way it reacts is great. It's got good reflexes for a vehicle of this size. And like I mentioned, if you want a softer version of the Altima, you can get a more base model with the 18-inch wheels without the SR Sport Tune suspension. I think maybe the Platinum trim might be another good vehicle to look into, because you'll get the 19-inch wheels without the Sport Tune suspension. So something to look into. But yeah, I loved driving this car, man. This is great. I don't think this is like as sharp as the 2021 TLX I have. It's not as balanced and precise as that vehicle, but it's still a ton of fun to drive. And I definitely, like I mentioned, I definitely prefer it to the V6 Camry. The Camry, I'd probably only get in the 4-cylinder, and that's convenient because I'm getting a 4-cylinder all-wheel drive 2021 Camry next as my next press car after the TLX. But yeah, this is high on my list. If only they came out with all-wheel drive. It's just, man, not too many people buy these things. That's the problem. So they can't offer things like manuals or all-wheel drive systems or anything like that because they just don't make enough money with these things to provide more options. But the way this sits, it's great. I'll put some winter tires on here if you experience some winters, and I think this could definitely handle that as well. They've done a great job masking out the imperfections of a front-wheel drive vehicle. This feels very neutral for the most part. You can actually probably put really sticky all-season tires on here, like Continental Extreme Contacts or Michelin Pilot 4 all-seasons on here, and it'll stick really well probably. So something to look into if you're going to be buying this vehicle. I love it, man. Give it a chance. I know a lot of people don't like Nissans. They don't like the CVTs. They don't like the reliability records, but they've done a lot of improvements. And you're buying it new, who cares about reliability? The way this thing drives is incredible. So definitely, I'm not just trying to gas this vehicle up. Test drive it for yourself. You know, you're the expert. You let me know, actually, how you like this vehicle. And more importantly, if you're an owner of this vehicle, let me know how it's held up for you and how you like driving this vehicle. So with that, thank you so much for watching this review. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care and goodbye.